Hey, welcome back and happy fall. Or if you are in the UK, you would just consider it to be autumn. We kind of have our own terms here in the US. I'm using what I believe is supposed to be a wreath. There's two of them. They're in the shape of a pumpkin, and I wanted to put them together and make a centerpiece for my kitchen table or dining table, whatever you want to call it. And I tried to use this scrap piece of wood to create a base that would lay flat. Obviously, with the wire around it, it didn't work. And I was a little frustrated with, I was like, I don't know how to make it stay straight up without it tipping over. And I wanted to just put the little foliage pieces in there just to make it look cute. And it didn't work. So I had to come up with something else, and I did. Here you see me just tying the baker's twine around, and I'm just gonna cover up the stem. I wanted the stem to be solid-ish and the rest of it to be the wires, and then have the full foliage or the florals or whatever you want to call it coming out. And I didn't want to have to use any glue or any of that. I don't want it to be permanent. In my opinion, it's harder to store that way. And I want to be able to reuse these things, and I might not want to reuse them in the same way next year. So I don't typically do a lot of permanently fixing it to something. I like to be able to remove it, store it flat, and then do something or even the same thing next year. Although if I do this again next year, I will not be using this baker's twine. I will be using something like macrame cord, which is like a thicker cord. What is it, like 12? I can't remember exactly, but you can get like different sizes of it, and I feel like it would take a lot less time if the cord was thicker. It took me somewhere close to an hour to cover this stem the way I wanted it to look. One, it was going to help hold the pumpkin together. Two, it was just cute. And so I go through and I wrap the bottom, and then I start doing a V. And so I start going from one side to the other underneath some of the wire, and then back up over the other wire. And then eventually I start doing some figure eights in between both sides of that pumpkin stem. And it took forever. And then on top of it, my hands started cramping. So I was like, all right, I'm going to take a break. Well, whenever I started back up again, I forgot to push record on the camera. Woo! Great job, Lydia. So the last part did not get filmed, but I'll tell you how I did it. I do the figure eight all the way up, and I leave just a little bit of space so I can wrap the very top, and then I just wrap the top like I did the very bottom. And then I tied it off and cut off the excess twine, and it was done, and it was cute. So it worked out. I would just recommend thicker cord. So you can use yarn. You could use quite a few things. You could use I don't know what it's called, but the basket that I use here pretty soon, I think is made of the same stuff, whatever that stuff is called, but it kind of feels like straw, but it kind of feels like thick paper. I'm not sure what it is, but the basket came from my sister-in-law, and it was like perfect for this pumpkin. The pumpkin fit perfectly in there, so it was great. But I go through and I'm wrapping and I'm going through and doing the figure eights. So you just kind of have to keep pushing it down, and then you do more figure eights, and you push it down some more and more figure eights until you get to the top, and then you just wrap around, like, just wrapping it in circles kind of. And then voila, it is good. I was still trying to figure out how to do this piece of wood. I was getting very frustrated because I was like, this thing is going to roll all over the place, and I don't have little kids, so I don't have to worry about the kids taking the whole thing apart or sticking something in their mouth or anything like that. My kids are grown for the most part. We have one child in high school, and he's in his senior year, so I don't have to worry about that. But here's the basket, and I decided to try to wire the board and the pumpkin into the basket, and then I changed my mind and I just wired the pumpkin into the basket, and it worked out great. So I ended up doing 3 of them. I did one in the center, and then I did one on each side of the pumpkin, and I just stuck the wire through the basket wrapped it around, you know, twisted it around, stuck it back down through, twisted it around, stuck it back up, and it just wired it to it. And I'll be able to take this off and use the basket for something else. Over the summer we were using it as the place where we put our sunblock and our bug spray and all of that stuff. So now it's being used as the centerpiece on the kitchen table, so it's perfect. But you just go through and secure it. Now that it's secure, you can just start placing your florals, picks, whatever they are called, inside of the basket and the pumpkin. And I love more of the rusty tones, like the burnt orange and the maroon colors whenever it comes to fall. I don't really like the really super bright stuff. And so now, you know, you have all these different fall colors in there, and I went ahead and placed some tiny little pine cones that I got from Hobby Lobby. I don't have a pine tree to go out and get some pine cones from, so I just bought a bag of pine cones from Hobby Lobby. You can get them on sale every week. The sales are different. I got most of the fall stuff on 50% to 40% off, and I think that's a pretty good deal. So you just kind of place them in there, and then it's beautiful. It's got all these different textures and all these tones that really play nice with one another. I think it's a beautiful centerpiece. I think it's going to be great for this whole fall season. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next time.